Masechet Nazir Daf Tet Zayin. We begin the third perek with a Mishnah that is already familiar to us because we studied it in some depth on Daf Vav. On Daf Vav, we saw that there was a machloket between Rav Matana and Bar Pada about a standard Nizirut. If you don't specify how long it is it 29 days, that's what Bar Pada says, or is it 30 days, that's what Rav Matana says. And we discussed how to read different clauses in this Mishnah according to both opinions. Since the halacha follows Rav Matana, that the standard is in fact 30 days, we will explain the Mishnah again here according to Rav Matana. The Gemara on this will be very short since we already discussed it at some length. Misha Amar Hareni Nazir Megalech Yom Sheloshim Ve'echad V'im Gelech Leyom Sheloshim Yasa. Someone says, I will be a Nazir without specification. That person can best to Lecha Techila shave and bring his korbanot on the 31st day. In other words, the standard Nazirut is 30 days. So Lecha Techila, the best thing he should do is complete a full 30 days of all the Nizirut restrictions, and then on the 31st day, will shave and finish. However, Bidi Avad, if he did shave on the 30th day, he fulfilled his obligation of Nizirut. Since part of the day is like the whole day, and so he was a Nazir for some time in the morning, and therefore, technically, it's absolutely permitted to do it on the 30th day itself. It's just that, for the best, Lecha Techila, do a full 30 days. Next case, Hareni Nazir Sheloshim Yom, Im Gelech Leyom Sheloshim Lo Yasa. If he actually said, I'm going to be Nazir for 30 days, we treat that as if he said, I'm a Nazir for a full 30 days. If he's saying 30 days, we assume he means full, meaning you can't just use part of a day as a whole, and therefore he must wait until the 31st day to shave. And if even Bidi Avad, he already shaved on the 30th day, he does not fulfill his obligation, and he will have to do it all over again. Someone says, I am a Nazir, meaning he took upon himself two obligations of Nizirut, but both without specification. So both are therefore the 30 days. But just like in the first clause, ideally a full 30, but b'di'avad, even a partial 30 is okay. Therefore, megalech harishona yom sheloshim ve'echad, v'tasheniya yom shishim ve'echad. Ideally, he should shave for the first Nizirut on the 31st day, as we just said 30 full days, and then the next day. And then the second one, he should ideally shave on the 61st day. Now, that is only 30 days later, but that's okay, because that 31st day on which he shaves for the first one can count as double duty, and everybody was fine with that. So that's so he has 31. He did a full 30 for the first Nizirut, and then starting on day 31, counting that as one of the next one, you have a full 30 days, you get to 60, so 61 is the day after the full 30. So that's the Lecha Techila. V'im gelechet harishona yom sheloshim, megalechet hasheniya yom shishim. If b'di'avad, he shaved on the 30th day for the first one, that's okay b'di'avad. Partial day is like the whole day. And then the next, since that was on 30, he can count that as number one of the next Nizirut. And if that day 30 is number one, the full 30 will end on day 59, in which makes day 60 the 31st day of the second Nizirut count. So if he does the first one b'di'avad, he should still do the second one in a Lecha Techila way, and that will end on day 60. And if he does both of them b'di'avad, then that's also permitted. That would mean he does 30 days. On the 30th day, he shaves. That's permitted because part of the day is like the whole day. That day can also count as day number 1 for the second period, and therefore that will end the 30th day. From there will be the 59th day, and if he shaves on that very day of this, the 59th day, which is the 30th day count of the second one, b'di'avad, that's also okay. So he can do b'di'avad for both periods. וזו עדות העיד רבי פפיאס על מי שנזר שתי נזירות, שאם גילח את הראשונה יום 30, מגילח את השנייה ליום 60. ואם גילח ליום 60 חסר אחד, יעשה שיום של 30 עולה לו מן המניין. And what we just said in this halacha, in fact, was testified to by Rabbi Papias. He lived during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, and he has many testimonies of actual occurrences. So apparently, this was these are actual cases. You always wonder when they have these mishnayot, they have various scenarios and variations of double nizirut, as we saw before, and the bifurcations and all that. Are these meant as theoretical exercises to figure out the various principles at play? Right? There's the first one first, second one second. Can you fulfill it? You need 30 days at the end. All that, and certainly, I think some of them are theoretical. But we see from Rabbi Papias that some of these are actually practical. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, would take upon themselves one Nazirut and then yet another. Right? Maybe various things came up and they promised one if this happened and then promised this if another thing happens. And so now they have to double up on them. And so anyway, he testified that someone says, I'm going to be a Nazir twice without specifying how long, that if b'di'avad, he shaved on the 30th day for the first one, that's fine. And then the second one should, the chetechila, still be on the 60th day, because that day 30 you can count double duty, so the 30th day ends on the 59th. And however, if b'di'avad, he shaved even the second one also, b'di'avad on the 59th day, then he fulfilled it, because after all that 30th day counts double duty. So he fulfilled 30 days for the first and 30 days for the second, even though he shaved on the 30th day for both. מי שאמר, הריני נזיר, נטמא יום 30 סותר את הכל. רבי אליעזר אומר, אינו סותר אלא 7. Someone says, I'll be a Nazir, without specification, so that's a standard 30 days. If he became tameh on the 30th day, before he brought his korbanot. On the 30th day, we just saw he's allowed to bring his korbanot. Everybody agreed to that. Once he brings his korbanot, he's officially over. He can go and drink wine. He could be tameh. He can do anything he wants after the korbanot. Here we're talking about that he became tameh before he brought the korbanot. According to Tanakama, that's it. He ruined everything. He has to go all the way back to the beginning. Just like if he became tameh met on day 10 or 20 or 29, right, or 30 in the morning, he didn't finish yet, even though this is his last day. Before the korbanot, he's still a Nazir, and if he ruins it, he ruins the whole thing. However, Rabbi Eliezer is lenient and says, no, he only breaks 7. Now, it doesn't mean he has to do 7 days of Nazirut again. It just means he's tameh met. So he has to add 7 days until he can bring his korbanot, because he can't bring the korbanot while he's tameh met. And in order to become purified from tumat met, you have to wait 7 days, be sprinkled with para aduma water on the 3rd and 7th day, and then on the day after, go to the mikveh on the 7th day, the day after that, bring one's korbanot. So Rabbi Eliezer basically saying that the 30 counts. Rabbi Eliezer would agree if it became tameh on the 10th or 20th or 29th day, it would be a problem. But because the 30th day is the last day, miksat hayom kekulo, since he was a proper Nazir at some time in the morning, so we count that as the whole day, even before he brings his korbanot. That's the chidush of Rabbi Eliezer. And so he's totally fine. He checked off all his days. He can't bring the korbanot that day and shave because he's tameh, but that's okay. He will just wait till we add another 7 days. Now, Hareni Nazir 30 Yom, Nitma Yom 30 Soter et Hakol. If a person says, I am going to be a Nazir for 30 days, now he specifies. And as we said before, if you specify 30 days, that's different from not specifying, because we assume that means 30 full days. In that case, everyone would agree that if he became tameh at any point on the 30th day, it breaks his entire count and he has to go back to the beginning. See, because when he says 30 days, he cannot bring the korbanot that day. He has to be Nazir fully that entire day. So certainly according to Tanakama, and even according to the Rabbi Eliezer, we don't say miksat hayom kekulo if he said 30 days, meaning a full 30 days. Hareni Nazir me'a yom, nitma yom me'a soter et hakol. Now, for Tanakama, this is going to be the same thing no matter how long it is. Even if he said, I'm going to be in Nazir 100 days, and on the 100th day, before he brings his korbanot, he became Tameh Emet. Sorry, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. You ruined the whole thing. Just like if it was on the second day or the 99th day, even the 100th day before korbanot, that's it, you're no good. Rabbi Eliezer omer eno soter ela shiloshim. Rabbi Eliezer will agree that he cancels something because he said 100 days. That means 100 full days, just like 30 days means 30 full days. If you specify 100, it means 100 full days. However, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. Like you can lock it in, like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? You can lock it in at a minimum. And so the Rabbi Eliezer just says that, no, the most you'll have to go back and redo is 30 days. So the 70 days that he did already, that counts. And then the redo is 30 days. And then after that, whatever, 130 days, he can then shave. All right. Nitma yom me'av echad soter sheloshim yom. Rabbi Eliezer omer eno soter ela shiv'ah. Okay, if he became tameh on the 101st day, he said, I'm going to be in Nazir for 100 days. Okay, he did all that good. On the 101st day, before he brought his korbanot, which he's supposed to bring that day, he became tameh. Here, according to Tanakama, since he did fulfill all the full 100 days, so he only has to go back for 30 days. However, according to the Rabbi Eliezer in this case, no, he just has to add 7 days because he's tameh. It'll take him time to become tahor again. So in this case, because he became tameh on the 101st day, so he fulfilled his obligation. He counted everything properly. So according to the Rabbi Eliezer, that's it. He counted everything properly. You wouldn't go back. Okay, you'd have to bring korbanot. It takes 7 days more. However, according to the Tanakama, even though he finished counting his days, before he brings his korbanot, he is still a Nazir. But since he fulfilled all the days, so he doesn't have to do all 100 days, he just has to do 30 more, and that would be sufficient. All right, now the Gemara is going to comment on a few of the clauses. Mi shamar hareni Nazir v'nitma yom sheloshim soter et hakor Eliezer omer eno soter ela shiv'ah. This is the first clause. Someone says, I'll be a Nazir, regular Nazir. And he became tameh on the 30th day, according to Tanakama. That's it. He ruins the entire thing because he didn't bring his korbanot. Yet Rabbi Eliezer says part of the day is like the whole day, so he finished it. He finished his count, and then he just has to add 7 more. Kasabar Rabbi Eliezer kol achar melot shib'ah soter. Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning is that after he completed his nizirut, he finished the counting, and part of the day is like the whole day. Then you only have to add 7 days. You don't have to go back 30 days. Certainly, you don't have to go back to the beginning. Hareni Nazir sheloshim yom nitma sheloshim soter et hakol v'la palig Rabbi Eliezer damar shelemin. However, if he actually specifies 30 days and then it becomes tameh on the 30th day, it goes all the way back to the beginning. Rabbi Eliezer in this case doesn't agrees, because we treat it as if he said, we understand him to mean 30 full days, and therefore until the day is finished, he has not completed his count. If you become tameh before the count is completed, then Rabbi Eliezer would agree that you have to go back 30 days. Hareni, do 30 days again. Hareni Nazir me'a yom, v'nitma yom me'a soter et hakol, Rabbi Eliezer omer, eno soter ela sheloshim. And so towards the end of the Mishnah, we taught that if someone says, I'm going to be Nazir for 100 days, and he becomes Tameh, on that 100th day, according to Tanakama, that's still in the middle of the count, and you have to go all the way back to the beginning, whereas Rabbi Eliezer says, no, he already counted his 100 days, and so therefore, but the day is not fully over, therefore he has to go back a max of 30 days. And all the rest of anything you want to know about this Mishnah was already discussed as we debated according to the opinions of Bar Pada and Matana. Bar Pada who said that standard is 29 days, Matana said unspecified standard Nazirut is 30 days, and you can reference back there on Daf Vav for the rest of the discussion. All right, next Mishnah. Misha Nazar vehu bebet hakebarot afilu haya sham 30 yom en olin lo min haminyan ve'eno mevi korban tum'ah. So a person is in the cemetery already, so he's certainly tamemet, and he's still in there, and he says, I'm going to be a Nazir. So there's a problem, because can he actually become a Nazir when he's in the cemetery? I understand if he's tahor, and then it's okay, now it kicks in, it starts however long, right? It goes to a cemetery, he'll become tamemet. But if he's already in the cemetery, then the answer is no, it does not start. And even if he's there for 30 days, he's living in the cemetery, sleeping there, he's not leaving. So those 30 days do not count at all. The count doesn't even start. And he does not have to bring korbanot that he would bring if it becomes tameh. A regular Nazirus tahor, he starts off for 5 days later. If he becomes tameh met, he has to bring korbanot, right? And then he has to restart. He cancels all the days before. But this guy, his days don't even begin, since it doesn't even get to day one. It doesn't even get to hour one. Therefore, he also doesn't have to bring korban, because you only bring korban if you started and then it breaks, then it stops. Now, yasav nichnas olin lo min haminyan u'bi korban tum'ah. On the other hand, if he leaves and enters again, or leaves and comes back, then when he leaves, then the count starts. And because the count already started, then when he goes back in and becomes tameh lamet, then he has to bring the korban for becoming tameh, and it will stop the number of days that he already counted will have to reset, go back to the beginning. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer omer, lo bo bayom, shene'emar v'hayamim harishonim yipelu, ad shihu lo yamim rishonim. Rabbi Eliezer disagrees and says, if he goes out of the cemetery and comes back that very same day, then he does not have to bring korban for tum'ah, because the pasuk says that the days, if pasuk in general is about a tahor Nazir who becomes tameh, that the days that he already passed or already counted will fall, yipelu. Notice it says days in plural. He has to have at least 2 days, more than 1 day, right? At least a day plus. Some say even 2 full days, in order for him to even be called that he's counting up to something, such that if he becomes tameh, he would have to bring korban tum'ah. So therefore, according to the Rabbi Eliezer, even if he leaves the cemetery and goes back the same day, he does not bring korbanot. You didn't even start counting, right? You can't. 1 is not a count. It's not called a count until you get to 2, right? If you leave 2, okay, then you go in the second day. All right, then you have to bring a korban. All right, Itmar, Misha Nazar vehu bebet hakebarot. Rabbi Yochanan amar nizirut chala alav, v'Resh Lakish amar en nizirut chala alav. So even though when Mishnah just said he doesn't start, we have a machloket amoraim now not about bringing korban tumah. That the Mishnah says you don't bring korban tumah. What about, are you a Nazir at all? For example, for the other prohibitions, can you drink wine? Can you cut your hair? So if someone says, I'm a Nazir, while he's in the cemetery, Rabbi Yochanan says he does in fact become a Nazir, even though we don't start counting for him, and he doesn't bring a korban for being tameh, but he is a Nazir, and so he can't drink wine. And Resh Lakish says, no, he doesn't even start becoming a Nazir until he leaves. So he can drink wine then. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Nizirut chala alav, sabar milta talya v'kayema, kevan demashkecha tahora, hayla. Rabbi Yochanan thinks that the Nizirut does apply to him, and it's hanging there in abeyance, waiting for him to become tahor, and then immediately it will start counting, right? But that whole time, he is called a Nazir, and he should not be drinking wine. Resh Lakish Amar, en Nizirut chala alav, ihadar v'amar chayla aleh, v'ila la. Resh Lakish said, no, the Nizirut does not start. It makes no sense. You can't start a Nizirut while in the cemetery. Therefore, even if he leaves, he doesn't become a Nazir automatically. He has to say something. He has to say, okay, now I will begin the Nizirut that I promised while I was in the cemetery. Once he says it, now he re-accepts the vow that he had said, and if he doesn't say anything, then he is not a Nazir until he says something to begin the Nazirut. Right? In other words, it's not hanging there and is going to apply to him any second, and therefore actually he is technically a Nazir in the cemetery. According to Rabbi Yochanan, can't drink wine. Resh Lakish said it doesn't apply to him at all. It just doesn't work. As being in a cemetery is like a force field. It's a negation. So therefore, he is not a Nazir. He could drink wine, and then when he leaves, he will say, all right, now I'm ready to begin. We're going to have a number of challenges of Rabbi Yochanan against Resh Lakish. We'll see two of them on this stuff, and it will continue on the next stuff. מי שנזר והוא בבית הקברות, אפילו היה שם 30 יום, אין עולין מן המניין, ואינו מביא קורבן טומאה. So the challenge is from our Mishnah that said, if someone is a Nazir and he is in the cemetery, he took a vow while he's in the cemetery, even if he's there for 30 days, it does not count, and he does not bring a korban. Now let's make an inference. Korban tumahu de la meiteha mechal chayla aleh. The Mishnah only says he doesn't have to bring a korban, but it means he is a Nazir for other purposes, and he cannot bring a Nazir. He cannot drink wine and cannot cut his hair. Right? Because if that was true, if he could, then Mishnah should say he's not a Nazir at all. It sounds like Mishnah is saying he is a Nazir, just for a technical reason he's not going to bring korban because it didn't start counting. Amar le, Resh Lakish says, I can answer you easily. Eno betorat tuma ve'eno betorat korban. The Mishnah is not saying only that he doesn't bring a korban. He means he's not even included in the category of a prohibition of tumah, and not even included in the entire category of someone who would have to bring a korban because he's not a Nazir at all. That's just the way of the Mishnah saying he's not a Nazir, that he doesn't start counting. He doesn't bring a korban. If you say he doesn't start counting, it means he's still at zero. Nothing happened. He is not a Nazir yet. All right, so that was a good answer. But Rabbi Yochanan continues. Itibeh, mi shehya tameh ve'nazar, asur legalech v'lishtot yayin v'litameh lametim. V'im gilech v'shata yayin v'yitnamad lametim, harei zeh sofeg et ha'arba'im. This time is from a Braita that also appears in the Tosefta. If someone was tameh, now it doesn't say he's in the cemetery, just that he was tameh, and he said, I'm going to be a Nazir. While he's tameh met, he's saying, I'm going to be a Nazir. That person is prohibited from shaving and drinking wine. So you see, right, he's prohibited even though he's tameh right now. And he also cannot become tameh lametim. Ve'im gileh, he cannot, if he's tameh in other ways, he cannot become tameh lemetim, or he cannot become more tameh lemetim on purpose. Just like Kohanim today, even though they are tameh met, they still can't go into a cemetery. And not that you can add more, but you still can't put yourself in the situation of tumat met. So to him, ve'im gileach v'shata yain v'nitma lametim, harei zeh sofeg et arba'im. If he did, if b'diavad he did go ahead and shave or drank wine or became tameh lamet, then he gets 40 lashes. Now, so you see in this case that he's not allowed to do any of these things. Now, iyamat bishlama hayla haynu tamad sofegat arba'im. According to the Rabbi Yochanan says that he becomes a Nazir even though he's tameh. That's why it makes sense that he will get 40 lashes, right? Because you are a Nazir, and so you are responsible. But if you, according to the Resh Lakish, that you say he does not begin he does not become a Nazir, why should he get 40 lashes? Right? It makes no sense according to you. He should not get 40 lashes because he's not a Nazir, because he's Tameh at the time that he takes upon himself Nazirut. And the answer is Hachames Kenan Beyosev Nichnas. No, Resh Lakish says, it doesn't say in this Baraita that he's in the cemetery the whole time. We're talking about when he leaves and enters. So he left, he took upon himself Nazirut. That's why it applies. And yeah, I would agree. In that case, he is a full Nazir. He's not allowed to drink wine. If he does, he would get Malkut. Just because he's Tameh doesn't mean he can't become a Nazir. But if he's currently in the cemetery, then that's what I was talking about. Then he does not become a Nazir at all. And so Resh Lakish was successfully parried the second challenge as well. And we'll see more on the next stuff. Baruch Adonai D'Olam. Amen ve'amen.